Thank you, Keith. So I think this follows on quite nicely from the previous two speakers, but I'm not going to be talking about data per se, it's more about signposting data. I wanted to speak in this session because I wanted to draw people's attention to the latest OASIS Plus module that has been in development. And I'm also going to say at this point that actually this would not have happened had it been for this is an OASIS Plus module for archaeobotany and zoo archaeology. Ironically, it was a non-specialist, Anne Wynne, who got this project going. It's something that many of us have wanted to see happen for a long time. Jill Campbell and I from Historic England have been trying to move things on with OASIS signposting, but actually it took a prehistorian, Anne Wynne, who was wanting to do a synthetic study of the data to actually push this along. So as part of a UK RI project in rewilding later prehistory, which is run by Anne Wynne, Oxford Archaeology, we have joined together and been working with ADS to develop this latest OASIS Plus module. And I will also say Tina has produced quite a few of these slides. She's not here. These words are mine, so I take full blame. But I just want to acknowledge right from this offset, this is very much a collaborative piece of work. So archaeological plant and animal bones, I think we probably all acknowledge they can be messy. The data can be messy. It's large amounts of information. Huge potential for analysis and research way beyond crop representation and animal usage, but it's expensive. It's really expensive to sample, it's expensive to process, it's expensive to do the analysis. So we have to get value for money out of that analysis. We want to be able to find past data easily, and then that can help develop better sampling strategies and analysis strategies. It can help us design the right questions for our investigations. The specialists want to have access to that data or find that data easily so that they can produce better reports, they can focus on the right things. And then also there is a wider research interest in finding not only the data, but also finding the actual archives of the original material and deciding whether or not it's worth going into those physical archives to do further scientific analysis. So as I've said, I'm not going to talk about the data per se, although I'm pleased to see Jane mentioned ArboDat. We have various initiatives to try and see more standardized data production, which will have to underpin the success of this module, I think, but that's a separate project. But it's just going to make the point there have been various projects in the past attempting to gather the data so that we can find it. There are the regional reviews, which Historic England produce. There's the environmental archaeology bibliography produced many years ago that signposted. It was very much a signposting project. So people, well, all of these are. So you go to the original data to do your actual data analysis. And then we also have various time specific or taxa-specific research projects, which are often academically led and will result in big databases. So these are all lovely. So it's a mixture of databases of raw data and then also signposting sort of data, not databases, but signposting projects. They're all obsolete as soon as they're published. So there's nothing sustainable about them. They're done and then that's it. It's essentially out of date as soon as it's published. So we need to, obviously it comes back to OASIS Plus. We want OASIS to be more sustainable. We want it to be tied into the planning process and routine reporting so that we have constantly updated access. As part of the rewilding project, we had ran a survey to get an idea of what the specialists knew about databases, fair data, and the archiving process. And actually we found there was quite a disconnect between the data producers, those specialists, and then the data archiving process. I think that's possibly one of the problems behind things like OASIS 5, because those specialists are not necessarily feeding the right information to the archivist, so it's not necessarily being flagged up. We had a series of project seminars, and during those we have discussed data, we've discussed fair data principles, and many of the specialists are getting a much better idea about what is needed and what is lacking and the part they can play in it. Remembering a lot of these specialists are really, really time poor. They're having to dash out projects with no time to do research and very little time to actually learn about latest data principles, fair data principles, and so on. So with OASIS 5, in theory, OASIS 5 should be flagging up projects, but we're finding that it's not. In part, as I've said, this could be because there's this lack of buy-in from the specialists, so the right information is not getting flagged. It doesn't flag up. Tagging is sometimes incomplete and inappropriate. Keywords are not quite right. The information's sketchy. There's no qualitative or quantitative information. So it's limited as a research tool. And to demonstrate this, the team at Oxford Archaeology had a look through their OASIS 5 holdings they did a search on Bronze Age and faunal remains. In the Thames Valley, very limited list of results came up. And actually, when Tina interrogated these, she found that because of the way that OASIS 5 data output is structured, none of these sites produced Bronze Age animal remains, Bronze Age faunal remains. They produce either faunal remains or Bronze Age archaeology, but not necessarily from the same context. So there was a problem. When she had a look on the HER, even worse hit. So absolutely, pulled blank, really difficult to search and to find the data. Actually, there's quite a lot of data on Bronze Age faunal remains in the Thames Valley. This is only part of it. This is being collated as part of the rewilding project. So we know the data is there. We just need to be able to find it. So this brings us on to the development of the module, and I was going to talk a little bit about how we are working through it and how we're developing it. This is very much a community-based approach, because for it to work, we need to have that buy-in from the specialists, but we also need buy-in from the archivists, and we also need buy-in from the project managers. We need to find something that flags the right data. We're not producing a data repository. That's done elsewhere. So it's flagging the right data is really important. What is that data we want to flag? And we need to have something that's searchable and queryable. So the end result is going to be a searchable database or a searchable front end that will be held probably on ADS. So it's not a data repository, and it has to be. We have to think about accessibility as well. So one of the things I'm just currently thinking about is whether we want to use Latin terminology, for example, or whether we want to use English words to make it accessible, both at the end result and for data input. So we've had seminars, as I've mentioned. We've looked at various different national databases and initiatives, some of which Jay has mentioned already. I think the attendees have had a better understanding of fair data principles, which is really helpful. And then we set up some working groups. So we have two principal working groups, one for archaeobotanists and one zooarchaeologists. We're having combined teams meetings regularly. We are using GitHub for discussions. We've also got emails going backwards and forwards. It's been a really interesting process. Some people are really enthusiastic. We hear the same voices repeatedly. Others are complete silence. So you have to push and nag and remind and prompt people. We're paying people for their time to get better buy-in. It still doesn't automatically happen. You get a very different response in a room, in an actual in-person seminar, of course. So we're having to use all these different ways of sorting this out. We are needing to find something that's fairly simple, because we don't want something that's going to take hours to develop. We're voting in or voting out fields as we go along. What else are we saying? And then we are listening to feedback. If it's going to be too complicated and it makes you want to run for the hills in horror, it's not going to work. So we have a prototype. This prototype was developed in December. Tim Evans at ADS has built this for us. I have got a link to it if anyone really wants to see it. I will be on the Historic England stall at lunchtime and can show you. In doing this, we are also hoping that we actually improve the quality of reporting. So including simple things like, that's fine, a summary box so that the specialists can think, oh yeah, what is really exciting about my assemblage? This is often missing. So like, yeah, I will flag up that really significant find, that particularly early example of something or a particularly interesting association. And then just the basic information. So this is going to go hand in hand with a set of guidance principles that we can create. We're already working on anyway to try and get that reporting to be of a more consistent standard. I mean, reporting's often very good, but it's joining it up so it's a bit more repeatable. So we have some general terms. We have, information about samples, numbers of samples, that kind of thing. And then we go on to more detailed information. We are not recording things like taxa for every plant. We're more looking at taxa groups, habitat groups for wild plants. We can't possibly tag everything that's present. There'll be methodology particularly applicable for the zooarchaeology module. We also then want to flag up things like additional scientific techniques. And we also want to flag up the quality of the material so that when people do their searches, they'll find the links to the data. They can already see, yeah, it's worth me going to that database or to that report or to that archive for my stable crop isotope project or what have you. We're tying things into fish vocabulary, of course. Controlled vocabulary is really important. We're also working with the Historic England team on this, and we're introducing more candidate terms, and we're getting constant feedback. Feedback's coming in person through feedback forms after seminars and then through testing. We're almost there now. I think we've just been sorting out our last few fields. We have a testing period over the summer. And I wanted to include this slide just to make the point that some of the feedback is more positive at a bigger level. And this is what I was really hoping. And it is about legacy. It's about sending the specialists away to produce better work. And it's about ensuring that, we have a continual access to this data. So we've had comments, as you can see, that it's going to influence the quality of future research. It should improve selectivity about what is analysed or not. This is about saving money, often getting best value for money. So that's important to the commercial sector. Increasing the visibility of environmental remains. Of course, that's the primary aim of it. And allowing slightly better standardisation and increasing the quality of reports generally. So I hope the principal legacy of this is that we'll see improved evidence-based sampling and analysis strategies, ultimately money saving, better quality reports, better access to for researchers of both specialist and non-specialist backgrounds, and also much happier specialists who can feel that they can get to the comparative data more easily, and they can also feel that other people are accessing their data more appropriately and more easily. Okay, and that's it.